Have you ever felt that sharp twist in your chest when the person you love starts to feel distant? That gnawing suspicion that something is happening behind closed doors? If you've ever felt that ache, then you're about to relate deeply to what Dylan Wang went through. This isn't just another celebrity rumor, it's a tangled story of emotions, hidden meetings, and a truth that left everyone in the CDrama world speechless. Before we go deeper, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this story takes twists you'll never see coming, and you don't want to miss what happens next. It all started quietly, almost too quietly. Dylan had just wrapped up his latest project and was supposed to meet Shen Yue for a private dinner, something they did often after long filming days to unwind and talk about their dreams. But this time, Shen Yue didn't show up. She sent a brief message saying she was caught up with a friend. Dylan thought nothing of it at first, but that night, something felt off. Her tone was distant, her replies delayed, her warmth gone. The next morning, he saw something that made his heart stop. Photos had begun circulating online, showing Shen Yue and actor Miles Wei together at a small rooftop cafe, smiling under the city lights. It wasn't a public event, not a brand shoot, just the two of them. The comments section exploded with speculation. Some said they were discussing an upcoming drama, others claimed they looked far too comfortable for it to be professional. Dylan tried to dismiss it, convincing himself it was all work-related. But the uneasy feeling wouldn't fade. He started noticing changes, the late-night calls, the sudden laughter when she checked her phone, and the way she began avoiding questions about her day. The more he tried to understand, the further away she seemed to drift. Days turned into weeks. Dylan's patience thinned as whispers grew louder. On one particular evening, he showed up at the studio unannounced, hoping to surprise her. But fate had other plans. Through the glass wall of the rehearsal room, he saw her sitting close to Miles, their laughter echoing faintly through the quiet hallway. Miles leaned forward, whispering something in her ear, and she smiled in that way Dylan hadn't seen in weeks. He stood there, frozen, torn between walking away and confronting them. When Shen Yue finally noticed him, the silence that followed was unbearable. Her eyes widened, guilt and confusion flashing across her face. Miles immediately stood up, trying to explain, but Dylan had already turned around. He walked out of the building without a word, his mind spiraling with questions he didn't know how to ask. That night, Dylan didn't sleep. He sat by his window as the city lights flickered, replaying every memory he'd shared with Shen Yue. Every scene they'd filmed together, every late-night message, every quiet moment where she'd once smiled only for him. Could it all have been an illusion? Was the connection he felt one-sided all along? The next day, the story broke wide open online. Leaked behind-the-scenes clips began spreading, showing Shen Yue and Miles sharing what appeared to be a long emotional moment after filming. Fans were divided. Some defended Shen Yue, saying it was purely acting, while others insisted that the chemistry between her and Miles looked far too real to be just performance. Meanwhile, Dylan went silent. No posts, no interviews, no sightings. But sources close to him claimed he'd withdrawn completely, avoiding even his closest friends. It was as if the cheerful, confident Dylan the world adored had disappeared overnight. Shen Yue eventually reached out, asking to meet in private. The tension when they finally saw each other again was unbearable. She explained that what Dylan saw had been misunderstood. The late meetings were about a secret project she and Miles had been preparing, something that wasn't ready to be made public yet. She said she didn't tell Dylan because she wanted it to be a surprise. But Dylan, still reeling from the heartbreak, couldn't bring himself to believe her entirely. There were too many missing pieces, too many things that didn't add up. She cried as she tried to make him see her truth, and for a moment, Dylan's anger softened. He saw the sincerity in her eyes, the same warmth that had drawn him to her in the first place. Weeks later, the truth finally surfaced. Shen Yue and Miles had indeed been working on a confidential production, a charity-funded short film dedicated to mental health awareness, something they had both been passionate about for years. It had required secrecy due to sponsorship deals and confidential clauses, explaining all the hidden meetings. When Dylan learned the truth, his entire world tilted. Regret washed over him like a storm. He realized how quickly he had allowed doubt to poison his love. Without hesitation, he called Shen Yue, his voice trembling as he spoke. He apologized for not trusting her, for allowing his fears to cloud his faith in her heart. Shen Yue listened in silence, tears streaming down her face. Then, after a long pause, she said something that broke him entirely. She told him that even though she forgave him, something inside her had changed. The trust that once defined their bond had been fractured, and it would take time to heal. The days that followed were quiet, reflective, and heavy with emotion. Fans noticed the distance between them in public events, the way they avoided standing too close, and the faint sadness behind their smiles. Yet, deep down, both of them knew that love, if true, never truly fades, it only waits to be rebuilt. And as for Miles, he publicly addressed the rumors in an emotional livestream, expressing his admiration for both Dylan and Shen Yue and clarifying that his friendship with Shen Yue had been purely professional. His honesty restored balance to the chaos, but the emotional scars it left behind on all three of them were not so easily healed. In the end, Dylan learned one of the hardest lessons of love, that sometimes, the real battle isn't against betrayal, but against the shadows of doubt we allow to grow within us. The CDrama world continues to talk about that stormy chapter between Dylan, Shen Yue, and Miles, not as gossip, but as a reflection of how fragile trust can be in the world of fame, where every look and smile becomes a headline. And as you think about this story, remember, love isn't just about being together. It's about believing in each other, even when the world tries to tear that belief apart. Dylan stood quietly behind the studio door, his hands trembling as the sound of faint laughter echoed from inside. It was Shen Yue's voice, light and genuine, followed by Miles Wei's deeper tone. They were laughing at something small, something private, something that didn't sound like a joke shared between co-stars. It was the kind of laugh two people shared when the world outside didn't matter. He felt his chest tighten. All the doubts that had haunted him for weeks suddenly began to feel real. The late replies, the soft smiles during rehearsals, the quiet conversations that stopped whenever he entered the room, it all connected now. But what Dylan didn't know was that Shen Yue and Miles Wei were not sharing a romantic secret. They were planning something unexpected, something that would change everything. That evening, when the cast wrapped up shooting, Dylan stayed behind, waiting near the parking lot. He watched as Shen Yue walked out, her hair tied loosely, holding her phone close to her chest. Miles followed a few minutes later, and they both got into a car together. Dylan's heart dropped. Hours later, unable to bear it anymore, he followed them discreetly. The car stopped at a small candlelit restaurant by the lake. From the window, he could see Shen Yue and Miles sitting close, their faces illuminated by the soft golden light. Shen Yue reached across the table, touched Miles's hand, and smiled. That single moment shattered Dylan's calm facade. He walked away, unable to watch more. His mind spun with emotions he couldn't control. Betrayal, confusion, and sadness collided in his chest. The next morning, he didn't show up on set. For the first time, he told his manager he needed time off. Meanwhile, Shen Yue sensed something was wrong. She called him repeatedly, but he never picked up. Finally, she sent him a message saying she wanted to talk, that she needed to explain everything. 2 days later, Dylan showed up unexpectedly on set. The entire crew went silent when they saw him. His face was calm but cold. Shen Yue approached him hesitantly, clutching a small brown envelope in her hand. "Dylan," she said softly, "you have to listen before you decide what to believe." She handed him the envelope. Inside were photographs, letters, and a handwritten note. As he flipped through them, his expression slowly changed from anger to shock. The letters were from Miles Wei, but they weren't love letters. They were scripts, written drafts, and sketches of a surprise short film project Shen Yue had been helping him produce secretly. At the bottom of the envelope was a note from Shen Yue herself. It read, "This was supposed to be our gift to you on your birthday, a project called Behind the Curtain. We wanted to show you how much your friendship and guidance meant to both of us." Dylan froze. The truth hit him like a wave. His suspicion, his jealousy, his sleepless nights, all of it had been built on a misunderstanding. Shen Yue's eyes filled with tears as she looked at him. "You stopped trusting me, Dylan," she whispered. "You believed what the world said before you believed me." For a moment, silence swallowed the room. Dylan wanted to speak, but words failed him. He reached out slowly, taking her hand. "I was wrong," he said, his voice trembling. "I let fear win." Miles walked in at that moment, looking equally emotional. "We were trying to surprise you, brother," he said, forcing a small smile. But I guess the surprise turned into a storm. They all stood there quietly, the weight of misunderstanding pressing between them. Then Shen Yue suddenly laughed softly, a fragile but genuine sound. "Well," she said, wiping a tear from her cheek, "at least now we all know the truth." Later that night, the three of them sat together by the lake, the same spot where Dylan had once mistaken friendship for something else. The moonlight shimmered over the water, calm and forgiving. Shen Yue looked at Dylan and said quietly, "Sometimes, it's not love that breaks people apart. It's silence." Dylan nodded. "And silence almost cost me the two people who mattered most." As dawn slowly broke, he stood, looking at the horizon, his voice steady. "Let's finish the project. Together." And just like that, what began as suspicion ended as something deeper, a renewed friendship built on truth, forgiveness, and the courage to face one's own flaws. When the short film Behind the Curtain finally released weeks later, fans were stunned by its raw emotion. The final scene showed three friends walking away from the camera into the sunrise, united, unbroken, and stronger than ever. But what moved fans the most wasn't just the film, it was the unspoken story behind it, the lesson that even in the world of fame, love and trust are still the hardest roles to play. If you made it this far, thank you for watching this emotional story of love, misunderstanding, and redemption. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next story might just break your heart all over again.